I met Claire backstage during a local theater production in Denton, Texas. She played Juliet. I was in charge of the lighting rig. She was all eyes and teeth and the kind of laughter that made people lean closer just to feel part of it. She had ambition like fire, warm at first, then something you couldn't control once it caught wind. I was quieter. A tech guy. Grew up around cables and sandbags. I didn't chase spotlights, just made sure they didn't fall on anyone's head. Claire said that's why she liked me. You don't need the stage, she told me once while taking off her makeup in front of a mirror. You're the only man who doesn't perform for me. And that's how she got me. With honesty, I later realized was selective. We got married in a courthouse 2 years after meeting. No big wedding. She said spotlights were for characters, not real life. We moved into a small house near campus. She worked part-time at a drama school and auditioned when she could. I kept working shows quiet, reliable, invisible. For a while, I thought we were happy. Then came Troy. Troy was younger. A visiting director from LA, full of stories, tattoos, and the kind of confidence you only get when you've never been told no by anyone who mattered. He came into town for a 6-week summer residency. Claire volunteered to help coordinate. She started coming home later, showering the moment she walked in, brushing her teeth before speaking, as if trying to scrub the lies from her breath. One night, I forgot to close out of our shared iCloud account. Her texts popped up on my iPad while I was wiring a floor lamp. Troy, can't stop thinking about last night. You taste like wild strawberries. Claire, you taste like escape. I sat on the floor for a full hour holding the screen. Not crying. Not shaking. Just listening to the sound of the air conditioner and realizing it was the only thing in the room that hadn't lied to me. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I studied theater too long to interrupt a performance before the last act. Instead, I began planning. Not revenge through shouting or cheating back. That was too easy. Too temporary. I wanted something she'd feel every time the lights came on. First, I built a replica of our living room inside the university's black box theater. I had access, keys, time. No one questioned why I was there late. I got every detail right, same couch, same rug with the wine stain from her 30th birthday. Even the chipped photo frame holding our engagement picture. Then I wrote a one-act play. Just 20 minutes. Titled, The Echo After the Applause. Cast, 2 people. Claire and a man named Not Troy. Dialogue lifted straight from her texts. Word for word. The school's fall theater showcase featured emerging local voices. I submitted my script under a pseudonym. They accepted it. Opening night, December 2nd. Claire had already signed up to run lights for the show. The night before the premiere, I sat across from her at dinner. She was scrolling her phone, half listening to a story I was pretending to tell. She said, "You okay lately? You've been calm. Weirdly calm." I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "Just been focused on making something meaningful." She nodded, not hearing the double meaning. And I watched her chew with the mouth that told another man he tasted like freedom. December 2nd. She wore all black. Hair tied. Minimal makeup. She was standing in the lighting booth when the first scene started. She didn't know the actors. Didn't recognize the setup at first. But then came the line. "You taste like wild strawberries." I wasn't in the audience. I was behind her in the shadows. I saw her back go rigid. Then the second line. "You taste like escape." And then the lights came up, revealing a perfect copy of our home. The room where she said she loved me. The room where she packed her lies into air and thought I wouldn't notice. She left the booth in silence. Didn't run. Didn't scream. Just slipped out the back like a stagehand after a bad cue. No one clapped at the end. No one had to, because that wasn't the point. The point was, now she knew that I knew. And worse? She had no idea who else did. The morning after the showcase, Claire didn't say a word. She made her coffee in silence. Didn't ask about the play. Didn't ask if I saw it. She knew I had. She also knew or suspected that I'd written it. But she couldn't say anything. Because if she admitted that those lines were hers, then she'd also admit everything else. And Claire wasn't ready to lose control of the narrative. Not yet. I went to work like normal. Backstage at Denton Civic Center, prepping lights for a holiday concert. The head tech guy, Jason, made a joke about the strangely raw play from the night before. "Saw that thing last night," he said. "Kinda brutal. Felt true though. Like someone bled into the script." I just nodded. "People kept asking who wrote it," he continued. "Nobody knew. Some mystery playwright. One theory is it's about a local scandal." I laughed softly. "Yeah." Jason winked. "Denton's small. Secrets echo." Claire avoided me for 3 days. Not in the physical sense, we still shared a bed, still exchanged basic greetings. But something had shifted. She triple-checked her phone before setting it down. Stopped humming while she got ready in the mornings. Didn't ask how my day was. Something she used to say automatically, like brushing her teeth. She was in self-containment mode, hiding in plain sight, but I knew what she was waiting for. The backlash, the whispers, the text from Troy that never came. You see, I'd already reached Troy, before the play. An anonymous message from a burner email. Just 2 screenshots of Claire's conversations. Cherry-picked, enough to show her duplicity. I didn't embellish, didn't threaten, just attached the subject line. She said you'd never find out. He never responded. But I know he read it. How? Because he canceled his appearance at the Denton Talkback panel that week. One Claire was helping organize. She showed up that day wearing lipstick. He didn't. He'd ghosted her. Perfect symmetry. On the 4th day, she cracked. It was after dinner. She stood in the kitchen with a glass of wine, swirling it without drinking. "Did you write that play?" she asked. I didn't look up from the sink. "Which one?" She didn't smile. "The one with my words in it." I shrugged. "They weren't yours once you gave them away." A pause. "Who else knows?" she asked quietly. "That depends," I said. "How many versions of yourself have you told your story to?" She didn't sleep that night. I heard her up at 3 a.m., typing in the guest room. I imagined the post forming in her mind. The justification. The soft confession masked as empowerment. Claire always knew how to control tone. But this time, she wasn't sure who she was speaking to, because the audience had seen the raw version now. Not the polished Claire. Not the survivor of a stifling marriage persona she was quietly building, but a woman who left herself exposed in her own language. The real trick, though, wasn't in what I revealed. It was in what I hadn't. Because buried on her old phone, the one she thought I erased before donating, were videos. Short clips. Private moments. Confessions whispered while drunk. Laughing too loud. Telling her friend over FaceTime how easy it is to lie when someone trusts you like he does. I'd never needed to use them. Not yet. But she didn't know that. And the possibility was enough. The next week, she withdrew from 2 upcoming performances. "Creative burnout," she said. The local drama group director raised an eyebrow. People began to connect dots. They always do, especially in small towns where art blends too easily with life. And me? I let the dots speak for themselves. Didn't accuse her. Didn't shame her. Didn't go nuclear. Because Claire's entire power came from the illusion of control. And now she was fumbling every scene, every cue, because I'd done the one thing she never expected. I made her own performance turn on her. Claire's favorite mask was always the one with just enough cracks to seem authentic. She never pretended to be perfect. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she specialized in flawed but brave. She leaned into her faults like they were handmade pottery. Artful, intentional, delicate. It always worked. Until it didn't. 2 weeks after the play, she updated her website. She'd let it sit dormant for over a year, but now it was back. Redesigned, cleaner, with a muted gray palette and a new bio. Claire Stoddard is a multidisciplinary artist exploring emotional narrative through movement and monologue. She believes in transparency, growth, and speaking even when your voice shakes. I stared at the screen, not angry, just disappointed at how predictable it all was. The reclamation phase, the new me language, the quiet rebranding after moral bankruptcy. But it wasn't just the website that changed. She signed up to teach a weekend intensive at the local arts co-op, a solo workshop titled, "Owning the Mess, Forming Truth in Character-Driven Monologue." I almost laughed. She was turning her betrayal into curriculum, framing it as creative fodder. And to the outside world, it would probably land. Claire always knew how to stage pain just convincingly enough. But this time, I decided to help shape the final act. The day before her workshop launched, I made a quiet phone call to Hollis, a young actress Claire mentored 2 years ago. Hollis had once confided in me after a cast party. She told me Claire used her, dangled opportunities, implied promises, then abruptly cut her off when she stopped being useful. She said I was too intense for the kind of art she wanted to make, Hollis had whispered, fighting back tears. But she copied one of my monologues for her own reel. I never told Claire. But Hollis remembered.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
So when I called, she didn't hesitate. I've still got the email, she said. The one where Claire said I was emotionally immature and not the kind of person people root for. Want it? I did. Saturday morning, I sent that email with Hollis's permission to the local co-op board. I didn't explain. Didn't editorialize. Just attach the file, subject line, in case this is relevant. They canceled Claire's workshop that afternoon. No announcement. Just a quietly deleted post. And Claire? She walked around the house like a ghost in a costume that no longer fit. She didn't ask if I was involved. Because deep down she knew. And worse? She knew I hadn't lied. Later that night, I found her in the garage. She was holding a box labeled Past Shows, digging through old headshots, scripts, photos. She looked up when she saw me. Do you ever wonder who you'd be if you hadn't met me? She asked. I paused, then said no. I wonder who I stopped being because I did. She blinked hard. But she didn't cry. Claire didn't cry when things hurt, only when she needed someone to see it. This moment wasn't for anyone else. So she stayed dry-eyed. That more than anything told me she was starting to feel it for real. I didn't gloat. Didn't throw words like liar or manipulator in her face. That would have let her center herself again. Let her paint me as the villain who never forgave her for being human. But this wasn't about forgiveness. It was about unmasking a performance that had gone on too long. And now? The audience had left. The stage was empty. And Claire stood in the wings, holding a spotlight with nowhere left to shine it. I started packing my bags a few days later. Not to run. Just to reset. A friend of mine in Austin offered a spare room and a temporary job at a soundstage down there. Claire didn't ask where I was going. She just said, "Do I get to say goodbye?" I shook my head. You said goodbye the first night you walked into someone else's arms and called it a scene change. And I walked out. No curtain call. No music. No applause. Just the soft slam of the door, the one sound she'd never learned how to control. Austin was heat, dust, and unfamiliar noise. It felt like freedom. I moved into a converted garage behind a friend's bungalow. It had paper-thin walls, a tiny kitchen, and a humming AC unit that sounded like a lawnmower. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I wasn't orbiting someone else's spotlight. I was just me. Claire waited 2 weeks before making her move. She posted a long entry on a personal blog that hadn't existed until the morning it launched. It was titled, "Leaving quiet doesn't mean you're guilty." It wasn't a name-drop expose. She was smarter than that. She framed it like a meditation, a reflection on the silent ways people wound each other, how some partners punish not with fists or screams, but silence and slow erasure. It was clear who she meant. She called me the man who said nothing loud enough to ruin me. I read it twice. Not with anger. With clarity. Because I finally saw her writing for what it was, rehearsal. She wasn't telling the truth. She was testing how it sounded. The blog didn't go viral, but it did pick up traction in our old community. A few acquaintances reposted it with comments like "brave" and "needed this." I didn't respond, but I made a call. Not to a friend. To Anya, a freelance dramaturg Claire had once dismissed during a script review, publicly and cruelly. Anya remembered. She also had a copy of the first draft of Claire's old one-woman show, Scorched Ink. In it, Claire had used almost the exact same lines, phrases about silence, erasure, emotional exile. Word for word. She just recycled it for this blog. I didn't have to say much. Just forwarded the screenshots to one of the people who'd praised Claire's post, a mutual acquaintance who ran a small online theater journal. That week, the blog disappeared. No explanation. No update. And no one asked where it went. She texted me a few days later. "Claire, do you think you're better now? Does this feel like justice?" I didn't reply. Because justice wasn't what I'd wanted. Just truth. And truth doesn't scream. It waits. I started volunteering backstage again. Smaller plays, mostly student-run. No pressure, no politics. One of the actors, a freshman named Eli, asked why I wasn't on stage. "Because I've seen what happens when the wrong person gets the mic," I told him. He nodded like he understood. I don't think he did. But maybe one day he will. Claire posted one more time weeks later. Just a photo of a blank page and a caption starting over. No more fear. Only 3 people liked it. None of them commented. People stopped asking me about her. Because her story had lost momentum. No third act. No firestorm. Just a slow fade into the kind of anonymity she used to call death. And me? I didn't celebrate. I just kept showing up. Kept doing quiet work. Helping other people build their stories from honesty, not escape. Because that was always the thing Claire never understood. Truth doesn't need a stage. It just needs time. And once it arrives, it stays. There's a moment backstage right before the curtain rises. It's silent, thick, breathless. Every actor stands frozen, waiting for the cue. That's what Claire's life had become, an eternal pre-show. Waiting for applause that would never come. I didn't ruin her. She did that herself. All I did was make sure the lights stayed on long enough for everyone to see it. The best thing about real peace is that you stop rehearsing what you'd say if they ever reached out again. You stop needing a speech, a stance, a finish line. You just live. By March, I had a rhythm. Worked during the week at the soundstage, helping wire up a local indie series that was filming on a shoestring budget but had enough heart to make it matter. On weekends, I volunteered with a youth theater program, teaching kids how to manage light cues and rigging safety. It was the first time in years I felt like a person without parentheses. Not Claire's husband. Not the guy behind the revenge play. Just Matt. A guy who liked his coffee black, his evenings quiet, and his truth unfiltered. That's when I met June. She was a lighting tech for the series, sharp eyes, calloused hands, and a laugh that didn't ask for permission. She didn't ask about my past. Didn't overshare her own. We just worked well in silence until one day we didn't feel like being silent anymore. She told me, "You seem like someone who's been made to feel small before." I said, "You seem like someone who doesn't let people shrink you." She smiled, didn't argue. And that's how it began. A few weeks later, I got a message request on Instagram. The name CB Sparrow. A burner account, obviously. I opened it. Only one message. "You really think this is over?" No photo. No context. But I didn't need any. Claire was back, not in my life, just orbiting like a dying star trying to pull something into its gravity one last time. I didn't block her. Didn't answer either. I just left it unread. Because you don't sweat at ghosts. You let them fade. June found me one night on the roof of the studio, sitting cross-legged with a coffee I didn't even remember making. She sat beside me, didn't speak for a full minute. Then said, "Whatever you're not saying, it's not heavy enough to break this roof. So you're safe." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was new, being known without having to explain yourself. So I told her. Not everything. But enough. Claire, the betrayal, the play, the slow unraveling of a woman who couldn't stand her own reflection unless someone else was clapping for it. June listened, then simply asked, "And who are you now?" I didn't answer. But later that night, I wrote in my journal. "I'm the man who finally understands silence as a boundary, not a punishment." Claire's last post went up the following week. A blurry photo of a beach. No caption. She deleted her profile 2 days later. And with it, the last performance. No finale. No exit music. Just gone. And it was perfect. Because people like Claire don't need enemies to fall apart. They only need time. Time without a stage. Without an audience. Time spent alone with their unfiltered thoughts. And that's the one show they never survive. June and I went to see a play the next weekend. It was a 2-person piece, raw, simple, honest. No spotlight tricks. Just truth and timing. When it ended, she looked at me and said, "I could see you writing something like that one day." I smiled. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about revenge. I thought about legacy. What it means to create something that lives beyond you, not to punish, but to reflect. To reveal. To free. Claire once said, "Truth is subjective. Everyone just picks their version." She was wrong. Truth isn't what you pick. It's what remains after the performance dies. And I'm still here. Stage lights off. House lights warm. Applause optional. But whole. It had been nearly a year when I drove back to Denton. Not for her. For me. The Civic Center was holding a small retrospective for the local theater's 40th anniversary. They were inviting past crew and cast members to walk through an exhibit of old posters, costumes, light plots. Jason, the tech director, had emailed me twice. "Come on," he wrote. "You're part of the bones here. It wouldn't be right without you." And I guess I needed to see if any of those bones still belonged to me. The building hadn't changed. Same burnt coffee smell near the concession stand. Same buzzing fluorescent lights in the green room that never fully turned off. There was a display table near the entrance, Voices of Denton Stage. A decade of scripts. I spotted mine. The echo after the applause. Still listed under the pseudonym I'd used, Michael Thorne. A laminated placard below read, an anonymous but emotionally searing one-act that sparked community conversation about authenticity, betrayal, and performance. I smiled, not because they praised it, but because they didn't mention her. That story had outgrown her. Someone tapped my shoulder. It was Hollis, older now, more self-assured. "Didn't think I'd see you back here," she said. "Didn't think I'd come," I replied. She looked over at the exhibit. "You know Claire moved to Portland?" I shook my head. "She teaches improv now," she added with a note of dry amusement. "Sells clarity journals on Etsy." We both laughed. Not cruelly, just tiredly. Hollis leaned in. "Thank you for letting the truth find its shape." I nodded, because some truths don't need to be shouted, just allowed. Before I left, I walked to the stage one last time. It was empty, the seats in the dark, the smell of wood and paint still in the air. I stood dead center, right under the ghost light, the single bulb they keep on to protect the space from darkness. And I remembered what Claire once said on this very stage, during a dress rehearsal. The ghost light reminds us that every empty space has a memory. She was right. But some memories lose their power when you no longer let them script your future. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the last thing I'd kept, a photograph. It was the original from our wedding day, her head on my shoulder, my eyes closed, a moment captured long before either of us realized we were just playing parts. I walked to the back of the stage, placed it gently behind the old curtain track. Left it there, not to be found, not to be burned. Just to rest. Back in Austin, June met me at the door. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me tea and pulled me into a quiet room. "I think you needed to say goodbye," she whispered. "I think I did," I said. Then I kissed her. And not for show, not for punctuation, but because no part of me was anywhere else. Some people think revenge is a sharp blade. A final speech. A door slammed just loud enough to echo. But real revenge is this, not needing them to be the villain anymore. Because once you outgrow the stage they left you on, they're no longer your story, just a chapter, just a lesson, just a blackout cue. And now, the house lights are up, the audience is gone, and I'm walking forward, not into another performance, but into my own life. No mask, no script, just me, alive. And finally, true.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.